Imagine the silence of an ancient grassland, broken only by the whisper of wind through prehistoric grasses. Then, a tremor. Dust rises from the cracked earth. Another tremor, closer now. The rhythm accelerates into thunder, and there it is. A shadow 10 feet tall, moving across the savanna with the speed of a racehorse and the purpose of an executioner. Its head alone is the size of a horse's skull, dominated by a beak that curves like a battle axe. 71 centimeters of weaponized bone, the largest ever possessed by any bird in Earth's history. This is not a creature of song or flight. This is Kelenken Guillermois, and 15 million years ago, it was death incarnate. Welcome to the Miocene epoch of South America, where the apex predators didn't roar. They didn't have fangs or claws in the way we imagine them. They had beaks and wings that would never fly. They were the terror birds, the Phorusrhacidae, and for over 40 million years, they ruled a continent with a savage efficiency that would make any mammalian carnivore envious. This is their story, a story of evolutionary triumph, ecological dominance, and ultimate disappearance. A story written in the fossil record of Patagonia, preserved in the volcanic ash of Argentina, and whispered through the bones of creatures that stood taller than any human, faster than most prey, and more formidable than almost anything that walked the earth during the age of mammals. To understand the terror birds, we must first journey to a world profoundly different from our own, a world still healing from catastrophe. 62 million years ago, the age of the non-avian dinosaurs had ended. The Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event had reset Earth's evolutionary clock. In the northern hemisphere, mammals began their tentative expansion into ecological niches left vacant by the vanished giants. But South America was different. Geologically isolated, drifting alone in the Southern Ocean like a forgotten ark, the continent had broken away from the ancient supercontinent Gondwana millions of years earlier. The tectonic divorce was complete. South America was an island, and in its isolation, evolution would take an extraordinary path. The early Cenozoic climate was warm and humid. Dense tropical and subtropical forests blanketed much of the continent during the Paleocene and Eocene epochs. These weren't the jungles we might imagine today, but primordial woodlands recovering from global catastrophe, gradually rebuilding complexity, one species at a time. The air was thick, the carbon dioxide levels higher than today, and global temperatures several degrees warmer. Palm forests stretched far to the south. Rivers carved through volcanic landscapes in what would become Patagonia. But around 34 million years ago, during the Eocene-Oligocene transition, the world began to cool. Ice started accumulating at the poles, and as temperatures dropped, the forests began their retreat. Grasslands emerged, vast, open savannas, sweeping across southern South America like a slow-moving green ocean. For any predator built to run, this was paradise. And the terror birds were built to run. South America's mammalian fauna at this time was bizarre by modern standards. There were no lions, no wolves, no bears. Instead, herbivores belonged to strange, now extinct lineages. Primitive ungulates unlike anything alive today. The carnivores were equally unusual. Marsupial predators called sparacidonts, with saber-like teeth but nowhere near the size or speed of what was to come from the north. There were even terrestrial crocodiles, the cebicids, stalking through forests on surprisingly capable legs. But towering above them all, both literally and ecologically, were the birds. The Phorusrhacidae had arrived. The first fragments of these creatures were unearthed in the 1880s by Argentine paleontologist Florentino Ameghino in the windswept fossil beds of Patagonia. Initially, the massive bones were so large that they were mistaken for the remains of herbivorous mammals. Only when more complete skeletons emerged
did the scientific community realize what they were looking at. Birds.
Carnivorous, flightless, and colossal. The family, Phorusrhacidae, would eventually reveal itself to be remarkably diverse. They ranged in height from 1 meter to 3 meters, from the size of a large turkey to taller than a basketball hoop. They weighed anywhere from 5 kilograms to an estimated 350 kilograms, depending on the species. But what united them all was a body plan refined for one purpose: pursuit and execution. Let us examine the architecture of terror. Their legs were engineered masterpieces. Long, powerful, and built from dense bone, they propelled these birds to speeds estimated at 48 kilometers per hour, 30 miles per hour, across open ground. Recent fossil trackways discovered in the Rio Negro Formation reveal something even more extraordinary. Terror birds ran with a functionally didactyl posture, meaning they held their second toe, equipped with a sickle-like claw, slightly elevated off the ground, much like the dromaeosaurid dinosaurs of the Mesozoic. This wasn't mere coincidence. It was convergent evolution at its finest. The same solution to the same problem, separated by 60 million years. Their necks were deceptively flexible. While they appeared short and stocky when at rest, the skeletal structure revealed bifurcate neural spines in the upper regions and high neural spines below, anatomical features that allowed the neck to extend far beyond its apparent reach and deliver devastating downward strikes with shocking speed and force. The neck muscles were robust, capable of carrying the massive head and generating tremendous momentum. And then there was the head itself. In Calencan Guillermo, discovered in the Colon Cura Formation of Patagonia in 2006 by a high school student named Guillermo Aguirre Zabala, we see the terror bird skull at its most extreme. At 71 centimeters in length, it remains the largest bird skull ever found. The beak alone measured 46 centimeters, nearly half a meter of curved, hook-tipped bone. But size was only part of the equation. The bones of the beak were tightly fused, creating a structure that could withstand immense force from front to back. This wasn't designed for biting and holding like a mammalian predator. This was a precision weapon. CT scans and biomechanical analyses reveal that terror birds couldn't shake their prey side to side like modern predatory birds. Instead, they delivered powerful, repetitive downward strikes like an axe splitting wood. The rigid, reinforced skull absorbed the shock of impact, while the hooked tip tore through flesh and shattered bone. They likely targeted the skull, spine, or other vital areas of their prey, delivering blows that were fatal within seconds. Think of it as a blend of hammer and blade. The weight of the head provided kinetic energy, the beak provided the cutting edge, and the specialized neck muscles provided the speed and accuracy. Different species employed different strategies. The smaller Coelopterinae, standing perhaps 60 to 90 centimeters tall, likely hunted small mammals and reptiles, possibly even wading in shallow water. The medium-sized Patagornithinae focused on prey in the 10 to 20 kilogram range. But the giants, the Phorusrhacidae and Phizornithinae, these were the megafauna hunters. They pursued animals far larger than themselves, using speed to close distance and that terrible beak to end the chase. Recent phylogenetic studies, published in 2024, reveal something profound about terror bird evolution. Gigantism evolved only once, in a single clade containing the Phorusrhacidae and Phizornithinae subfamilies. When the Phizornithinae went extinct, the Phorusrhacidae emerged to fill that apex predator niche, an ecological succession written in stone. Size-based niche partitioning prevented competition between clades. When two species coexisted, they hunted different prey or lived in different regions. This wasn't random. This was evolutionary strategy. Calencan, Phorusrhacos, Devincensia, Titanis. Each name represents a variation on the theme of avian predation. Each species carved its own ecological path through the Cenozoic, a masterclass in adaptive radiation. 15 million years ago, in the Middle Miocene, the Colon Cura Formation was a landscape of open environments and volcanic activity. Ash fell periodically from distant eruptions, preserving moments in time like photographs. It was here, in this savanna, that Kelenken hunted. Picture the scene. A herd of primitive ungulates grazes in the early morning light. These are not deer, not horses. They are Toxodon and Macrauchenia, strange mammals unique to South America, with bodies vaguely resembling rhinos and camels, but belonging to neither lineage. They move nervously, heads lifting, nostrils testing the wind. And then they run. Kelenken has appeared on the horizon. At 3 meters tall, the bird is an apparition of feathers and bone, moving with an almost impossible combination of size and speed. Its stride is long, economical. The sickle claw on each foot flexes upward with each step, preventing wear, saving its sharpness for what comes next. The chase is brief but brutal. Terror birds were not built for marathon hunts. They were sprinters, ambush specialists who used speed to close gaps quickly. Studies of the inner ear structure of Andalgalornis suggest these birds were phenomenal in straight-line pursuit, but poor at tight turns at high speed. This makes sense. In open savanna, prey has nowhere to hide. The chase is about raw velocity. Kelenken closes on a juvenile Toxodon that has fallen behind the herd. The bird's neck extends, the head rising high, and then the strike. The beak descends like a guillotine, 71 centimeters of bone and keratin driven by powerful neck muscles and the weight of a skull that alone weighs several kilograms. The impact is to the skull. The juvenile's legs collapse. It's over. But Kelenken isn't alone for long. In the Miocene savanna, other predators exist. Marsupial boarhanids prowl the forest edges, their saber teeth glinting. Sebacid crocodiles patrol riverbanks. Competition is constant. Research indicates that terror birds and marsupial carnivores partitioned their habitats. Birds dominated the open plains, while boarhanids retreated to forested areas to avoid the more aggressive avian predators. This was the height of terror bird dominance. During the Miocene and early Pliocene, Phorusrhacid populations exploded. They thrived in the expanding grasslands. They diversified into numerous species. They became more than apex predators. They became ecological architects, shaping the behavior and evolution of every creature that shared their world. But empires, even avian ones, do not last forever. Around 2.7 million years ago, the tectonic plates shifted once more. The Isthmus of Panama rose from the sea, creating a land bridge between North and South America. For the first time in tens of millions of years, the biological isolation of South America was broken. What followed is known as the Great American Biotic Interchange, one of the most significant ecological events in Earth's recent history. Animals moved in both directions. South American species like ground sloths, glyptodonts, and porcupines migrated north. But the traffic moving south was far more consequential. Carnivorous mammals, canids, felids, bears, poured into South America, and they brought with them something the terror birds had never faced in significant numbers: advanced placental carnivore competition. The traditional narrative holds that these newcomers outcompeted the terror birds, driving them to extinction through superior hunting strategies, greater adaptability, and perhaps higher intelligence. But recent research complicates this story. Paleohistological analysis published in 2025 examined the bone microstructure of terror birds and found something surprising: dense, vascularized fibrolamellar bone matrix and uninterrupted cortex lacking growth lines. In plain language, this means terror birds grew rapidly and continuously, much like modern continental birds, not like island species or animals from stable environment. This suggests they were already under strong competitive pressures and were highly active, metabolically demanding animals. They weren't slow, island-adapted relics waiting to be replaced. They were dynamic, continental predators. Moreover, the timeline doesn't quite match. Most Phorusrhacid lineages and the marsupial Sparassodonts began declining well before the arrival of most large placental carnivores. The correlation isn't as clean as once thought. Climate change during this period was dramatic. The world was cooling. Ice ages were beginning. Grasslands shifted, forests expanded and contracted, and prey populations fluctuated. It's likely the truth is more nuanced. Competition mattered, but so did environmental change. Terror birds were specialists, finely tuned to specific habitats and hunting strategies. As the world changed, their niches narrowed. One genus, however, defied expectations. Titanus walleri crossed the land bridge into North America around 5 million years ago, before the main pulse of the Great American Interchange. This terror bird, standing over 2 meters tall and weighing approximately 150 kilograms, established itself in Florida and Texas. For millions of years, it coexisted with saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, and short-faced bears, all the placental predators that supposedly spelled doom for its kind. Titanus survived in North America until approximately 1.8 million years ago. It was one of the last of its lineage, possibly the very last Phorusrhacid on Earth. And then, quietly, it vanished. The final terror birds left no drama, no sudden catastrophe. They simply faded from the fossil record during the Pleistocene, casualties of a changing world, where the ecological space for 10-foot carnivorous birds had finally closed. Today, in the grasslands of South America, there are birds called seriemas. They stand about 80 centimeters tall, with long legs, sharp beaks, and a preference for hunting on foot rather than in flight. They are among the closest living relatives of the terror birds, echoes of a lost dynasty, reduced but not forgotten. When you watch a seriema hunting a snake in the tall grass, you are witnessing a behavioral inheritance that stretches back more than 60 million years. The strike of the beak, the speed across open ground, the preference for terrestrial life, all of it connects to that ancient lineage, to the days when birds ruled continents not from the sky, but from the ground. The terror birds left something else behind, too. A reminder that evolution is not a ladder, but a branching tree, and that dominance is always temporary. For 40 million years, these birds were among the most successful predators on Earth. They survived the extinction of the dinosaurs' immediate aftermath, thrived through multiple climate shifts, and carved out ecological niches that nothing else could fill. But time is indifferent to success. Continents drift, climates change, new competitors arrive, and even the most formidable predator is subject to forces beyond its control. The bones of Kelenkin still rest in the rock of Patagonia, its massive skull frozen in the moment of burial beneath volcanic ash. Somewhere in those hollow bones, in the structure of that terrible beak, is the story of what it means to be perfectly adapted to a world, and what happens when that world transforms into something else. Perhaps that's the most profound lesson the terror birds offer us. Not that strength guarantees survival, but that survival requires adaptability across timescales we can barely comprehend. The terror birds were masters of their time, and their time, like all times, eventually came to an end. But for 40 million years, they stood 10 feet tall, faster than fear, sharper than any tooth, and ruled a continent with beaks of bone and wills of iron. And in the fossil record, in the stone and ash and ancient earth, they stand there still.